Well, good morning as we're sitting here at LTV on Monday morning, December 11th, year 2023, here with the Hello Hello Show. And my name is Haim Mizrahi, continuing with the tradition of public access and the tradition of the Hello Hello Show that's been on the air since 1980. Of course, not to fail to mention the contribution by Fraser Doherty, Francis Ann, and of course the likes of you out there to make it your business to enhance and fortify the concept of public access. We have two guests here with us this morning, Debra Stein and Roni Gerard. And we're going to be doing some discussions about the event that's going to take place here on Wednesday. And we get all the details. And of course, we're going to widen the discussion into avenues that pretty much concerns all of us, regardless of what faith we practice and so on. First of all, Deborah, we never really got to speak, to interact, other than just kind of seeing each other here and there. So I'm very excited that you're here with us.
Thank
And we can discuss also about the role of the Jewish Center here in the East End. And Roni, I never met you, but we're meeting you now. So I'm sure that there will be many contributions to this discussion. So first of all, maybe a few words about the Jewish Center and what role does it play in our community, and maybe we can take it from there.
Well, the Jewish Center of the Hamptons was established now probably 70, if not more years ago, by a small group of families who wanted to actually have Jewish education for their children. They originally belonged to the other congregation in Sag Harbor, which is known as Adas Israel, and but they didn't have a religious school. And so they went to Evan Frankel, who was one of our founders, and they showed him a piece of land on 114, actually. And they said, we'd like to create a synagogue here. And he said, I have a better piece of property. He took them to the Borden Lane estate, which he owned, and he leased it out to them for $1 a year. And we have grown from 10 families to well over 400 families. And we have a beautiful new, not so new any longer, beautiful sanctuary built by the late Norman Jaffe, a wonderful architect on the East End. And I serve there as their cantor, and we have a rabbi, Rabbi Joshua Franklin, who's with us now for 7 years.
Mm-hmm. And Roni, a few words about Roni. What role do you play?
What do I play? So as an Israeli who hasn't been there for many years, but still always going to be a part of me, I felt like wasn't enough going on here to show the support, even though there is, as we just heard, quite a big Jewish community in the area. So I started speaking to some people. Then I came across Lauren Feldman, who is going to perform on Wednesday. And she said, you know what? There's actually an event that is already happening. Why don't we see if we can join forces? And then we had a few meetings to kind of form the idea of what exactly are we looking to achieve. And I think our main focus was that it's not just about, as you mentioned, the Jewish community. We are a part of a bigger community here. As you heard of what happened in Montauk, as soon as that happened, everyone joined together to show their support.
And luckily that was resolved by way of finding the person. Thank God for that. So.
Yes, and I wish it was easier in the Middle East, but it's not. So yeah, just to increase awareness, show our support to Israel, and just being humans, This is not a safe situation everywhere in the world now. So, maybe love will win.
And I'm not so sure that people out there realize this. This is just not something new. This is just an extension of something that exists and most probably will continue to exist. And but there's a great concern in trying to educate people as far as this concept is concerned, because to begin with, if you have to educate people about the fact that hatred and aggression is not a good idea, there's always already a problem there. But insisting that that's the way it should be, so you're passive, but in many ways you're active by being passive, to state and restate the fact that this is not a good idea, this is not a good thing. And even in the face of what happened in Israel lately, which is kind of a little bit over the top, even though we're used to occurrences like this, and people don't realize that Jews were killed in the last decades, on and off, in a horrific way, regardless. But this was really over the top, just to kind of maybe remind us that the situation is a little maybe more serious than we think it is. But tell me the extension of this as far as our community is concerned. How do we feel that effect coming to our backyard?
Well, for many years I've been part of what's called the clergy of East Hampton, which that's all of the members of all of the religious faiths around East Hampton. And I was touched and moved to tears by my colleagues from absolutely every faith that reached out and said, what can we do? We want to be there. We want to help you. What can we do for you? And I think it's important to note that I've lived out here for almost 40 years, if not longer. In the beginning, I felt anti-Semitism out here strongly. And over the last 25, 30 years, I didn't feel any of that any longer. And I really feel like a lot of us feel like we're living in this cocoon community where we're safe and nothing's going to hurt us. And then we see something like what happened in Montauk and what's happening all across the country where anti-Semitic acts are happening. And we realize we said never again when the Holocaust happened. And we have to stand by that, never again. And if we don't take the power into our own hands to make sure that what just occurred on October 7th in Israel never occurs again, and that we have to stand behind Israel and its people. And that's not to say that we don't mourn the loss of every innocent human life. We do. At the bottom of our hearts, we really do. But we can't stand here and allow our Israeli brethren and sisters to be massacred. We have to do something. And so when Lauren came to me about the concert, it was just the perfect connection. Lauren is one of our congregants, a friend of yours, sings Broadway, off-Broadway, magnificent, magnificent voice. And she just really brought us all together to say, we originally called it a concert for peace, and then we changed it. It's a concert for Israel. We want everybody in this community to know, do we want peace? Yes, absolutely, we want peace. But first and foremost, we have to ensure the fact that Israel, our beloved country, can continue to be here.
Yes, and the extension of it is that really it affects everyone, because obviously we see 9/11, it's like people already forgot. I mean, they didn't forget, but and lucky for us that we don't have to live this nightmare in the intensity that it took place 20 somewhat years ago. But for example, as an Israeli, when you come from that kind of, I've been here for 40 years, but it doesn't feel like I've been here for 40 years. I feel like my neighborhood is right there, and I just left it a week ago. If at all, I consider it as leaving my backyard there in Jerusalem. But so the extension of it, how does it affect your thinking and your going about your day-to-day chores, day-to-day kind of sense of being relating to the reality that you are part of here?
So it's kind of turned my world upside down. I have 3 little boys, and since this happened, I felt like they need to understand more where they come from, where's their background. I am a granddaughter of Holocaust survivors on all sides. Obviously, after what happened in Montauk, where we all thought we are living in this bubble, that burst that bubble. I also, even before they started, I tried to go to their school and educate about every holiday that Jewish people do. So people are aware there are people of all religions living here together. But I would definitely say I have disclosed for them whatever they can understand in their age.
Or being able to relate to.
Right. Yeah. But so my nephew's in military, so that's their cousin. So in the IDF. So they understand what they can, and it's really registered with them. So we went to Montauk to show friends, and my son asked, are we going to see the posters we put up for peace, where that logo was. Aside from that, a part of me wanted to just go to New York City on a daily basis and join all the protests there, but I feel being here and opening people's eyes to the situation that this can be everywhere and everyone are affected by it. I felt it was more important, especially since the relation to the city, what's happening in colleges all over the United States. I really think education should be on all sides, and people should be knowledgeable before they make any decision. And if you don't know what you're talking about, just keep quiet until you do. Because
Yeah, it's easier said than done, It's like too much to ask, Even if you treat people with utmost respect to their intelligence,
Right.
sometimes they lack that. Unfortunately, it's not our fault,
Mm.
But yeah, please
And
finish
I
your.
feel what really warmed my heart here is that a lot of my friends who are actually not Jewish have been really supportive, and have been asking constantly, how are we? How am I doing? How is my family? Been going to battle for me, I would say, or like, disconnecting friends who they don't agree with. And just the awareness is just really need to be increased. People don't read things thoroughly, they don't understand the situation, it is very complex. And a lot of it, the magnitude of anti-Semitism, which is everywhere right now, right? We're talking about London and Paris and big cities and the colleges. It's people just choose to support um, one thing, and they think that if they change their mind by any way, or something occurs that kind of dispute the way they felt about it, they just can't go back. So they stay so loyal to this concept of just following through, and it's all this kind of social media which is increasing sometimes just what we call fake news. um, it, it really needs to be more based on facts,
Yeah,
and it's not at the moment.
but then again, it's almost like borderline wishful thinking.
Right.
And what I don't think there's one Holocaust book that I didn't read. I even corresponded with Elie Wiesel before he died, and
I know him. I knew
wrote him
him. Sorry.
some. Um, I sent him some poetry in Hebrew, the
Hmm.
extension of my, and through his books, I got to understand the extent of the literature that there is there available, which was. But what I learned, what I took away from all these great, incredible, and also Martin Gilbert, who is number one on my list, which is that the world doesn't like to face a brave prototype, Jewish prototype that is proud, self-sufficient, like a hero, like strong enough, like has answers, like can react, like can be, like have a preemptive attitude. They just don't like that. They want that Jewish person that to be on the ground begging for his or her life, or succumbing to punishment and insults and whatnot and all this. And I think the sooner we accept that as a fact, the more progress we can achieve, actually, by saying, hey, listen, you better just get used to the idea that this is not going to go so smoothly for you if you're going to. Now, the extent of that, what happened in Montauk, was also what I was really happy about, is that the police is showing us that they can work efficiently.
Right.
And sometimes that the doubt of whether they can or cannot, whether they have a handle on the situation or not, is the number one concern, more than the actual act of that unknown person. So when they did that, it was just like, whoa, I felt so relieved, because I knew that the police are doing their job, and they're doing the job wonderfully. And of course, someone is going to go and get some justice here and all that. But how can we be passive by being active, and active by being passive? How can we present the case, the Jewish case, so to speak, but still exclude everyone, but in the same token, including everyone? It's almost like an impossible task, but so much needed.
Well, I think we are including everyone. And I think that we're very fortunate that everyone wants to be included. I would say 90% of the people, if not 95% of the people that I know out here, want to be included. And I think apropos of what you were just talking about, you have to understand that most people who were not raised in Jewish homes and Jewish communities, what do they know about being Jewish? They know Fiddler on the Roof. They've got this Tevye mentality that each and every one of us.
It's a great thing to know Fiddler on the Roof.
Well, Fiddler on the Roof is wonderful, but it doesn't define who we are as Jewish people. And
Joseph Stein that wrote. He lived on North Main Street. So.
Yeah.
I
And the
painted his
music,
house.
beautiful music, wonderful music. I mean,
Oh yeah, wonderful.
Got great fond memories of performing it years ago.
Yeah.
But once we realize that if no one is going to stand up for us, we have to stand up for ourselves. We don't want to do it aggressively. And yet when things like this happen, we realize we have to be aggressive. But the community itself, I think for the most part, they've been wonderful. They really have been very supportive. And I have to say that the police, for all of my years out here, and this is not the first anti-Semitic act that's happened out here.
Of course.
A number of them have occurred over the years. They've always been right on top of it. And they've always called us and our other congregations immediately to let us know what's going on and to allow us to put our voice into the situation.
Yes, and to feel comfortable in the midst of this supposedly, scary scenario. But you know what? Speaking here, I'm here since 1983. Also, I just celebrated my 40th, and before 40 years ago, we were. The Spanish community wasn't as great as it is now, and I was a person that was approached with the racism and whatnot, and I went through some very concerning, very threatening scenarios where I had to really choose how to react and to be very smart about how I go about it. But I remember that one thing I remember from my reaction eventually is that, let's say we're attending a dinner party with a girlfriend or something of mine that took me with her. And suddenly one of the participants there said something that, like, oops, he didn't realize he said something like really bad to me without knowing and realizing that he did that. And they went on and on. And then I realized that I can let people go on and on and on and on because I know that eventually I'm going to speak my piece. But the thing is, I learned that people don't understand that this is what's going to happen. What they think, I'm going to do whatever it is that I'm doing now, and we're just going to go back to eating our dessert or something. So when it's all said and done, and he thinks or she thinks or they think they're going to go back to normal, I say, wait a second, I need to speak my piece. And I always brought people, supposedly, metaphorically speaking, to their knees, to tell them, verbally, I can literally devour you if I wanted to, but you cannot just sit back and think that you can just express yourself in a very kind of insulting way and get away with it. It just doesn't work this way. I don't know how effective it was or not, but I know that we were those who experienced, and I belonged to that group where people thought then they'd be coming here to steal their jobs or things like that. Never mind that my first reaction will be, I don't see a person in front of me who wants to work. So if like you're claiming that I'm going to take a job from you while you're not willing to do any work. So this used to be my reaction. So the discussion now shifted to where I wanted to shift, a real intelligent discussion. And so I think sometimes we need to teach the other side that they cannot get away with it. And then if they want to open a subject, they got to be, intellectually compatible. And I think that's a great way to go about it.
I think going back to what we were saying before, I think people are scared also from the different, right? There's always this fear of like the unfamiliarity. And that's a part of why I'm trying to also go to classes and increase the awareness
That's
of
a very
the
good point.
classmates. There's a tendency to, the different or the minority, right? We've seen that in the past without mentioning any other groups that have always got this ginormous support in the last few years because they are the minority group and they were treated unfairly. So I think there's this fear, oh, they're not like me, so why should I be on their side? So I think it starts with education. So this is a part of why I feel that if I have friends who are from Austria and have nothing to do with Judaism, but they come in to do kiddush at my house when we light the candles on Shabbat dinner, that's for them, oh, this is nice, this is a different tradition. They loved it, they try different foods, they get familiar with it, and it doesn't feel as threatening anymore. It's not someone that is like unlike me. We're the same. We just have different traditions. It's just a different way of, it's not even a different way of life. It's just that is your background and you can both coexist. So I grew up in Mevaseret Zion, which is outside of Jerusalem.
Oh, yes.
And next to us, there was an Arab village that we used to go to every Friday before Kiddush to have hummus and eat their pitas. And so you can coexist. It just, at the moment, it looks like we're very far away from it. but it is possible. I like to think. Without that, you can't forget where you came from, right? You don't want to put that aside in order to have peace. You want people to accept you the way you are, with your history, with your tradition, the same way you try to accept others.
Absolutely, that's very well said. And Deborah, the role of the Jewish Center, obviously, it's almost like as if I imagine it needs to reinvent its strategy every time all over
Mhm.
again. So, what role? Well, obviously, the obvious role that the Jewish Center will play in our community, being a Jewish center, is I want you to discuss to mention that also. But how do you adapt to changing uh, when the scenario changes?
Well,
Does it really need a profound uh, kind of reorganizing thought or looking ahead on how we're going to respond or how we're going to place and add to this attitude to create that awareness?
for me, the most important thing is working with the local clergy because they bring this back to their own congregations. And at the Hanukkah lighting, at the Hook Mill, they were all there.
Yeah, that's
when
great.
when we did something after the Pittsburgh shootings, they were all there. Every time something happens, they all show up. And I think also we have a group of children coming from the Springs School District. On Wednesday, they have a diversity club, and they're going to come and they're going to see what a sanctuary is, and they're going to see what a Chanukiah is, and they're going to see what a dreidel is. And we're teaching these children. These children come from backgrounds where they've never met a Jewish person. And so we do a lot of that, and we do a lot of
But
social
even
action.
that what you just said is kind of horrible almost. It's like if I say, what, who are we? What are we? That is like never so. It's very disturbing. It still it takes some getting used to. It's not. It doesn't.
Yeah,
Doesn't
I
matter how
think.
much you chew this food. It just doesn't feel like you can digest it.
Well, I think because you grew up in
Mhm.
Israel, and I was born in Brooklyn and grew up on Long Island in what was such a Jewish tight knit community. But you go into the Midwest and go into all these other places, go to Mexico. Are there Jewish enclaves? Yes. But do they interact with the other people, with the other communities? Not so much. And what we're finding now as a Jewish community is that if we want to survive and if we want to let people know as Am Yisrael Chai, the people of Israel will live, we are here, it behooves us to educate them.
Yeah,
And I
it's
think
more
that
like
that's what
to
we're
prevail
doing.
than to survive. To survive, of course, but to prevail,
Absolutely.
it's just kind of one step. But the evolutionary process of you making the transition, for example, coming from Israel. I mean, I know personally how it feels and what it means. So what how do you how can you sum it up in like in summarize this kind of how does it feel and how does it look when it takes place on the surface?
I mean, I didn't come straight here, so there was a slow. I was in the city first, so I feel like New York City has a
Yeah, but I
lot
mean,
more diversity.
leaving Israel altogether and kind of
Oh,
introducing yourself to a new society or a new. Uh,
um, initially, I feel like it was easier, and then maybe it got harder.
okay.
Everything was exciting and new, and I was getting adjusted to also. So I lived in London first, so getting used to living in different places, traveling more, all kind of different exciting experiences, right? So I don't think it kept coming back to me as much as I think the hardest part was probably when I became a mom. So now I need, and I need, no, it's not just want, my kids need to know where they come from. Again, as
Hmm.
I mentioned before, because of my family background, I served the military. Let's talk about just myself. I served the military. They need to understand why people do that where I come from. So I think before that, people knew, everyone knew where I'm from. There was obvious. I was never ever trying to hide that. But as soon as I became a mom, it became much more prominent. Um, I don't think I ever encountered a situation where I felt very uncomfortable until recently when I was in Miami and got in an Uber. And it was a very strange conversation. And it's the first time that I felt that I couldn't be as vocal as I would want to be just because of keeping myself safe. Because it was just me, it was dark at night,
Yeah.
you know. Um, but that is the first time I really felt out of place almost, which I don't think anyone should ever feel. Um, but instead of letting that put me down, I think I'm thinking the reverse, and I became even stronger about we need to do this event. We need to increase awareness. I keep talking to people who are not, again, are not a part of anything, just really to increase. There's a book like I recommend my friends to read, or if they have any questions, I send them videos, like just to know what is this about. And I think the importance of that is because we just see this I did not expect this anti-Semitism to come. I felt like it came out of the woods. I don't know why. For me, maybe I'm not. I wasn't a part of that generation, but that what it felt like.
Speaking of the
initially.
woods, it was in
Yes.
the woods. It's always in the woods, you know. It's hiding until it's getting the chance to show its face.
Right.
But that's okay. Finish your. I'm sorry.
So I think I would never want to put my kids at risk, but I would never want my kids to hide anything about them. So there's an Israeli flag outside my house, and it's gonna stay there. And we're gonna keep doing traditions, and they're gonna keep, telling their friends everything, because this is the only way to win. As you said, I feel that is maybe your answer: passive aggressive, show who you are, be confident in who you are, without getting too aggressive about it. But
Yes,
the
definitely.
right balance.
So first, I want to mention we're sitting here with Debra Stein from the Jewish Center in East Hampton and Roni Gerard. So why don't we mention the event that's going to take place here on the 13th? Is it yes?
Yes. So
And so all the information, all that, and maybe we can continue our discussion and go back again to introduce the event that's going to take place.
wonderful. So the Jewish Center of the Hamptons for the past 4 or 5 years has been doing what we call pop-up Hanukkahs. And so every night of Hanukkah, we show up someplace within the East Hampton community. We light the Chanukiah, we sing a few songs. Sometimes we have latkes that go along with it. And so this whole concept of coming to LTV, which is now a very important part and has been for many years of the East Hampton community, we were going to come and we were going to light the Chanukiah, and then that'll be at about 6:30. And then at 7 o'clock, we're going to do a concert for Israel, where so much of our local talent has offered willingly their talent. We'll start with actually a video that's being done by Roni's sister about what's going on in Israel, about the people who are still being held captive, about what Israel is experiencing. And then from there, we will do a concert of songs about peace, songs about being together.
And who
about
are the
Israel.
participants when it comes to the?
Okay, if I miss a few, I apologize. So Lauren Leibowitz, and then we have Peter Weiss and John Ludlow and David Craw and Jeff Levitt and myself. I'll be singing. And Nick Epstein. I'm sure I'm missing a few, but it's just, and
many
Troy
more.
Grindle.
Okay.
It's just, when we first did this, Roni had to literally say to me, are we doing this? Because if we're not doing this, I'm going to do something by myself.
Yeah, that's it.
And I said, Roni, I mean,
That's
typical
the
Israeli,
Israeli
right?
attitude.
Typical Israeli attitude.
You're talking about Mefaseret Zion,
Yeah.
This is no joke here.
She doesn't even know me, but are we doing this? If not, I'm doing it.
Yes, yeah.
And I said, but Roni, I'm trying, but first I need to find musicians before I can say we
Next
have a
time
concert.
you need musicians, I played with Ludlow and with Peter and with Nick Epstein. 15, 20 years ago, we used to do our freestyle at his home, recordings, whatnot. So yeah, I can always help.
You're going to start off the whole event.
Yeah,
right?
now I don't even know how to begin. I would start with Staccata Tzilmi Mavet. First of all, let's see, or if you have a hard time finding your pocket, there will be attendants that will show you the way. And so,
well, on that note, then the tickets, 70% right of the tickets are all going to there's going to be 2 big donations. We're going to put it into the Hostages Families Foundation, and another foundation that's going into what we call refugees in their own land, because there are about 200,000 Israelis who had to either forced or had to leave their house as a preventative means in case something happens. So, and the nation will just go there. Everything else, there's going to be a little bit of wine.
There'll be wine. Latkes by Charlotte, who used to own Stewart's Seafood.
Yeah.
It'll be really a wonderful, wonderful event. And you know what? As we're sitting here, I'm thinking to myself, this is the Jewish spirit. We can sit here right now and laugh and enjoy one another's company. And 10 minutes from now, we could be crying because of what's going on in Israel.
Yes.
And that's, to me, that's the Jewish spirit. That's the dichotomy of living as a Jew.
And and I always, as I said, I've done over 5,000 shows so far. This particular show, even though I'm been with LTV for 37 years, but I always emphasize the role of art and the artistic process. How it's just, even the epitome of evil itself cannot stand adamant in front of the power of creativity. So the answer is, of course, not in a cliche fashion, not in an irresponsible fashion, to think that this is going to solve all the ailments of the world. But with my kids, for example, there's no Jesus, no Moses. I don't like to bring them into the equation, because then I need to start explaining to them things that I'm not capable of doing. So I'd rather say to myself, at least, or with my wife, saying, they're going to at some point seek the truth, and they will probably find it faster than they think they will. And then they're going to have to deal with it themselves, because the explanations that I will have to offer them probably will stand in their way rather than benefit them. But the art is the number one, and we can see it even through all the stories through Auschwitz and whatnot. Even in Auschwitz, there's a very famous story about someone who used to he killed 85,000 people with his pistol, and he kept a list of what he was doing, and he happened to be a pianist before he became this master killer, and one of the inmates informed him that one of the greatest pianists of the times before the war is in the camp. And he arranged for this guy to come to his office. And he brought a piano to his office, and he sheltered him, and he protected him, this guy that killed, and was on his knees telling him how much he worshipped him. So it's a crazy analogy. It's crazy that we have to use that. But this is, and all the greatest forces of evil, how they contemplated to loot the art. Why? Because they worship the artists, and they had all these facilities where they, before even all this madness started, that they prepared, because they know they're going to loot, and they wanted to make sure that it's protected, and the humidity level and this level and that, and the special group that traveled with the Wehrmacht, that there was professionals to how to loot art and how to get, So this tells us the story that it's actually effective to be an artist. Every time you open the door of the studio, that like I do, and I step in, I know I played my role. I know I added something to that strength, mental, spiritual, religious, social, you name it. It's all within that equation of the simple acts and all this.
So remind me to send you, in Tel Aviv, a few artists just independently did graffitis everywhere about representing not scenes, but things around the war. So a child saying, "Mommy, mommy," which you all probably heard, but just massive blow up graffitis on buildings everywhere. So that is a good, people find their way. Or there were a few, I don't know if you've seen that, they're doing yoga classes of 240 when there were still 240 hostages, and every single one of them have a paper of one of the hostages. The whole practice is to that person.
Wow.
And they done it in Miami, and they done it in Tel Aviv. And again, the music, they choose all like peace kind of theme music, and the whole practice is dedicated to that person that is on their mat.
And even here, the art that you see, I've been curating it for 26 years, a monthly basis. We got artists right and left. This is just like a no-brainer where you can really achieve so much by just going steady as she goes, and make it as important as it is and as it should be, really. But going back to the importance of the Jewish Center, and then again, I want to emphasize that you and I really never. We kind of saw each other maybe and kind of nodded or whatever, but I know of the importance of that. I'm not so sure that people out there know of the importance of the reality and the existence of this wonderful entity in our community. So maybe this is a great opportunity for us to push it a little forward and make people aware of what it stands for and what it's all about.
Thank you. Well, the Jewish Center of the Hamptons has always been the center of Judaism on the east end of Long Island, where we've been educating our Jewish children. We have been educating. Adult education is so important in our congregation, and worship. And we've been holding Friday night and Saturday morning services throughout the year on the eastern point of Long Island at a time where other congregations would close for the winter. And we were always here. And we have our own cemetery where we've been able to have a Jewish cemetery to bury people. And that's also very important out here. But we've had a lot of rabbis in my tenure here. And every rabbi brings their own spice to what the Jewish Center of the Hamptons is. We're led by a very dedicated board of directors. And the number one thing is to make sure that the people who are living out here who want to find a Jewish home can find it. And that's always been our number one raison d'etre.
Yeah. That's good. So, so as far as aspirations are concerned, and obviously I see that you have the energy when it comes to that kind of that you don't hold back and you kind of externalize your. I mean, and you externalize your intentions and you do something about it. You go about it. So, so is there like a borderline where we should kind of stop and think sometimes before something that we say or something that we do? I mean, do you feel that? Does it all cross your mind when you're like in that motion forward to create awareness, to increase awareness, and vice versa? Also, as far as the Jewish center is concerned, is there a point where we need to stop and think and maybe sharpen our potential reaction, as opposed to just kind of being like all out?
You know the Yiddish expression, "Offen lingen, offen singen." If it's on your lung, it's out your tongue.
Uh-huh.
And I think everything that's been going on recently, I can't filter myself. I just can't filter myself any longer.
In a way they will serve our purposes, I meant.
No, I understand,
Yeah.
but I think that right now the only thing that serves our purpose is to show people that we are here, we intend to be here. Judaism is a rich, beautiful, cultural religion, and that wherever you want to enter into Judaism, we want to help you go through those doors. Not every Jew is going to pray every Friday night and every Saturday morning. Not every Jew is going to keep a kosher home, but everybody who is Jewish should be proud of who they are and find their way to Judaism. And right now, for better or for worse, what happened on October 7th has made so many people so profoundly aware of the fact that they are Jewish, that while they may have for years not thought a thing about being Jewish, and we see that in our worship services maybe on a Friday night this time of year, we'd get 10 people, 15 people. We've got 30, 40 people. These are people who are just saying, I need to be here.
Yeah.
I need to be here for myself.
So what are the nature of the challenges? Obviously, there's a lot of this whole concept of being Jewish or being gypsies or being homosexuals or being whatever. But what is the nature of the obstacles that now are vivid and that we need to kind of in an urgent fashion, attend to, relate to, address?
I would think first and foremost is safety. If you don't feel safe at we said about colleges or at your town, or if you feel like you need to hide something about yourself, that's the number one, right? We all want to be safe no matter where we are. I don't think for many years, and as you said, when you did have those encounters, it was years ago, I don't think for many years people had to worry about it, especially not being so close to, as I mentioned before, New York City, who has so many Jewish people. And I would think the second challenge for me is, as an Israeli, really try to bring what I know as growing up there to a level that people can understand and relate. Some things that come naturally to us are very foreign to other people. for example, mandatory military service.
Yeah.
And just the awareness of what is going on when you are there, feet on the ground, what the conflict looks like, and what, let's say, Gaza looked like before. And this is something that when you were asking the question before, where do you think we need to maybe put barriers? I always have this in the back of my pocket, something no one can argue with. So even before this war, as people already know, Gaza was a very poor place with very little education for kids. So I think that the solution will be at establishing proper education system in that part of the world. And when I were trying to explain it to people who grew up here and have no idea the extent of what that means, I gave actually a very concrete example. If you take a place in the United States that is very poor and has a high drug usage, they tailor little kids who don't go to school to be their sellers, right? So I was trying to get as simple as possible the concept of what lack of education and lack of means can lead people to do. What actions can come, or what kind of person grow up in this kind of environment. And I think for a lot of people that kind of threw them back. Oh, that's what you mean. Like, it's very hard if you haven't been to Israel, if you haven't been to that, to just get an idea. So I think it's different layers for me of, so first I said safety, and that's a part of what Cantor was saying about being Jewish, and then the layer of being Israeli.
Yes.
And try to bridge all that together.
And apropos that, but we all know that we're not going to change anybody's mind. There's a discussion. They say, oh, we want to kill you all and throw you to the sea and take you from here to there, from there to here. And say, no, you're not going to do that. It's the wrong thing. You're wrong. Let me explain to you. It's actually not what you think. It's this and that. I say, no, it is. No, it's not. No, it is. No, it's not. No one is convinced. Everyone is so radical. It's to such extent. I mean, it's like, it's a no-brainer. All sides are wasting their energy, except that the other side wants to kill you, and the other side wants to explain to you. And so the one side wants compassion and passion, all this. The other one says, we want compassion and passion to find a way how to efficiently eradicate you. So it's like, and then even in the Kabbalah, they say, what did they say? It's there's some that it's a mitzvah not to try to convince he whom unconvincible. If my translation is, because that kind of waste of time scenario is avera. So it's mitzvah not to push it too much, because you can just leave it at that. So, but and then the harder, it's like the harder you try, the deeper you dig that hole that eventually you'll fall into, and the hole will be so deep that there's just kind of no way out of it. So it's almost like me as an artist, for example. Sometimes people come and ask me, "How did you do this?" And instead of telling them, what is it your business? Can't you come up with a better question? So I say, well, it's up to you to find out, and then you come and tell me how. Or how long did it take you to paint this painting? And inside me is saying, why is it important to know that? So the thing is, you want to be sarcastic. So, but how many people do you know that you will choose and use sarcasm as a way of kind of bailing themselves out from a scenario that is just not benefiting them, getting nowhere, and in more ways than one, maybe wanting to show wanting to show your opponent that this is just not working. So if you're not willing to stop and have a cup of coffee with me and we can chat, or not chat, just kind of breathe in and out together, then we're getting nowhere, kind of thing, So it's just like a back and forth, standing in the same spot and kind of rocking the floor, and you're getting nowhere. So I'm still wondering, where is that salvation going to come from, that these things will produce results?
I have to say that I think I'm much more of an optimist than I'm hearing that you might not be such an
I'm
optimist.
frustrated. I'm not optimist.
Okay, I
A
understand
pessimist. I'm
frustration.
just frustration.
But I think that what Roni spoke about, which is education, education, education. Now, will we see it in our lifetime? Perhaps not.
Mhm.
But there's so many wonderful organizations that bring both Israelis and Palestinians together and work even in Gaza and try and get people from Gaza and people from Israel to work together and create together. You know, yes, it's one person at a time or two people at a time. It's going way too slowly for me. I can state that. But I do know that there are wonderful organizations that are boots on the ground trying to get people to live together in harmony. Again, I don't think it'll happen in my lifetime.
Yeah.
I hope in your children's lifetime, I hope in my daughter's lifetime, my grandchildren's lifetime. But I don't know.
I mean, there's 2 million Arabs living in Israel, and they're on our side. I've seen them post, I've seen them talk, I've seen them get interviewed by different organizations. Most of them are standing behind Israel 100%.
Well, but they also have 750,000
Yeah.
pieces of weapons in their homes, and also the crime there in the communities of the Israeli Arabs is just uncontrolled. And it's but the thing is that I hate to think of October 7th as a wake up call, because it's my friends in Israel, when I talk to them, they said, it's ridiculous to discuss something that your opponent is telling you is going to do that to you all the time, day in and day out. And then you wake up one day, he did that, they did that, and they prevailed, and you failed. And so why are you surprised? The thing is that's why learning from your mistakes has to be in real time, not after the fact. You can't say when the war is over, we'll see what we're learning from all this. A big mistake. You have to learn from it while you're fighting. You have to multitask. In a multitask in more ways than one, on many levels, even philosophically, even religiously, whatever it is. But you can't let it go and say, let's address it, later on. So what is my father, when I grew up, there was not even 1 ounce of hatred or promotion of hatred or resentment towards anyone. Even though my father, there was a fighter in the establishment of this independence war, and he was a big hero then. He did some things that he was more reckless than brave, but he did it. And he was telling me when that individual was charging at me with a knife or with a gun, he wasn't playing games with me. He was out there to kill me. So it wasn't like, okay, let me see if I can recite a poem now and he will freeze or something or have second thoughts. Or he talked to me about this non-wavering, non-compromising, non-changing reality where it's just the way it is and it's going to remain that, and it's not your job to try and undo it because you won't be able to. But your job is to first, like you mentioned, to relate to your immediate surrounding, and if you have a family, think, how am I going to be somewhat ready to the extent that I can, so I can give the answers if and when, God forbid, something awful happens. And how they say, Pitronim Lael, the resolutions, only God knows the resolutions. We are just like His servants. So it's sad to think this way. It's sad to think that we have so few tools in our hands available to work with, to really make progress, like visible, real progress. It's very frustrating, and many people don't even want to start to embark on this journey because they know they're getting nowhere, which is, and I don't promote that. I promote you have to try no matter what. But that saddens me. That's why I don't want to teach my kids about things that my head is telling me this is important, but more my heart. I want to tell them, listen, I will teach you what it is that I think it's easy for you to relate to now, and you're going to be able on your own behalf to form that opinion, that point of reference. And the touch and go on my behalf as a dad should be more than enough. But my head is telling me, no, you got to take the whole 100% and dump it on them, and let them choose and sort through. So I don't know. I wish I would have known to be to have everything clearer in my mind and at my disposal in order to make the right choices for them. Was that too long of a monologue?
No, you really gave, for me, you gave me a lot to think about. And I sort of reflected back on my own child. And yes, she was the daughter of a cantor, but I did not force on her religion. We had a Jewish home. We observed all the Jewish holidays, but I let her be herself. I kept a kosher home, and yet she loved pepperoni. So how did that happen? But yet I find now that somehow my daughter has become a wonderful, compassionate Jewish woman. And, you know, what are the answers? I don't know what the answers are. I don't want to live in a cocoon and say it's only about me and my traditions. I want to be able to share my love of Judaism with the world, and certainly with all of the people that I know, and understand that everybody will come to like me or not like me, because the basis of who I am is to be Jewish, and to feel that I can't help but bring my heritage forward with me. I don't ever hit anybody over the head with it, but I just think that as Jews, we have certain ways that we understand we have to behave. Like your father said, if someone's coming at you with a knife or with a gun, you have to take care of yourself, because nobody else is going to do it. But if you could teach somebody how to take that knife and gun and put it down, then you've achieved a true mitzvah. Then you've really done something special.
Yeah. And I can give you an example. In 1980, I traveled across Egypt when they first signed the peace treaty with Egypt. And I did north, south, east, west. I did the entire thing. You know, my Arabic is fluent. And I remember that I traveled from Cairo to Kina, from Kina to Hurghada. And there I made so many friends, really, lots of friends. And they were intrigued by the fact that I'm fluent in Arabic and all this. And then the Lebanon war started when I was there. And of course, there was no communication. I couldn't call my parents or anything like that. But I remember that there was a crowd in the piazza that said, "Kill the Jews, kill the Jews." And I was there with my friend, the Egyptian, and his father and his family, and they owned the local restaurant. And there were some people who came from the crowd that knew me because I was there for a couple of weeks. And the father approached them and he said, "Hey, it's Haim. What are you doing?" So I remember then they stopped, and then they looked at me, and they had like almost like a smile, like, "Oh yeah, yeah." So I felt like there's hope. I felt like, you know, you even in a short time you can create some soft spots in the hearts of people that otherwise would be like vicious killers. And I was scared. I was scared because I know I stand no chance there, you know, all this. So I was completely passive. I was just like kind of like glued to the moment, and I was at their mercy. And he reacted, and that happened. And that's something incident I took with me until today. It serves as a point of reference, a healthy one. But anyway, whether you believe it or not, we devoured 53 minutes. But I want to mention again. The event that's going to take on Wednesday. So Wednesday, the 13th of December. Please, the mic is yours.
Thank you. Wednesday, the 13th of December, a concert for Israel at LTV Studios. Starting 6:30, we light the Chanukiah. We light the lights of Hanukkah. And then at 7 o'clock, we're going to do a wonderful community concert of peace, ending the concert with everybody singing Hatikva.
Hatikva, that's good. That's a
Please
wonderful.
So,
well, I wanted to encourage everyone, and I'm going to mention it also tomorrow. And this show also will be available tomorrow night and tomorrow morning, and then Wednesday morning. So we'll have some enough exposure. And also, I think we spoke about other issues that I can air at any time, you know, which is good material to have. Also, to let you know that this stage is available. You know, I'm here 7 days a week, and no restrictions. I can talk about anything. You can call me anytime and become a part of this outfit. And public access is a great way to celebrate that which we promote, and in many ways, indirectly, all the things that we mentioned in this hour. So I want to thank both of you.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
Ronnie
Wiseman Gerard.
Gerard, Roni Gerard, and Debra Stein. I really appreciate you coming. And again, it doesn't have to be the last time. Let's just say we're embarking on a journey where the possibilities are unlimited. We're going to be here tomorrow, as much as we were here yesterday, and as much as we're here this morning. Monday morning, December 11th, year 2023, here with the Hello Hello Show. And as I said again, thank you to my guests, Debra Stein and Roni. What am I saying? Roni Gerard, and keep up the good spirits. You know, we know you're out there. You're doing your best to contribute to this concept, and we thank you for that. Be safe, and we love you.